America has become completely unaffordable, and I don't know why more people are not talking about this. Half of America doesn't even have a savings, rent is insane, healthcare is a luxury, and somehow the narrative is still people are just bad with money. Like, what money? People are working full-time. Most people have 2 to 3 jobs anymore because you have to. At what point do we stop blaming the people and just accept the fact that the cost of living has simply just outpaced reality? Because everything is this expensive, you have to know exactly where all of your money is going anymore. Like, a budget is just simply a necessity. You have to have one. Started using a budgeting app like mine to figure out where all of my money is going, but it does not make up for the fact that America is too expensive to live in anymore. If you're struggling, you are not alone.
To you on your birthday is your employer ID for the Corporation of the United States of America, and that when you go to work to that 8 to 5 every day that drains your soul, once you learn that you've been indoctrinated to believe that the more education, the more money, the more success, the more material possessions so that you have to continue to work is all a lie to drain your soul and keep you so unfocused, you can't unsee it. Once you understand all of these things, you still have to participate in the matrix. You still have to feed your family. You still have to pay your bills. You can't exit it, and it's exhausting. You have to walk around and pretend all day long. You participate in a system that you no longer believe in. I can't tell you how many of my friends and I have discussed that we're so sick of this. We just want a piece of land, basic shelter, raise some chickens, bake some bread, homeschool our kids. We no longer want to participate in the system. It's exhausting. It's all a lie. Almost everything we've ever been taught is a lie. And being forced to continue to live in the matrix is exhausting. It's freeing. You no longer have to worry about the rest of the crap. When you take back control of your own life and know that none of it matters, you just do what you want to do. That's why when I said yesterday, I don't give a damn, I don't give a damn. This is my life. But it's exhausting to walk around with all these other people that don't see it for what it is and pretend that everything's normal when it's not. Tell me in the comments if this is you, because I want to hear about your awakening.
Why does it seem like everybody is just crazy? Like, I feel like I'm getting to the point that I don't even want to go out in the world anymore. Like, everybody's nuts. Is it just me?
I think by now, most of us understand that this is true, that we have been lied to since childhood about literally everything. Like everything that we thought was true, everything we were taught in school, everything we learned growing up, and everything we hear on the news, everything that people believe to be true is just not true. It's all a lie. But the question is why?
This is the biggest realization I had when I left the US. We live in the matrix here. If you feel like you've been indoctrinated to be a slave, it's because it's true. If your gut is telling you that this is not what life is supposed to be, it's because it's true. I promise you, all you need to do is buy a flight. Get the fuck out of the US. Don't move, right? Just go on like a 2-week trip just so you can open your mind. Because the reality of it is, we've all been indoctrinated since kids. And a lot of you guys who have...
So yesterday I definitely applied for like 10 jobs already. Most of them were rage applies, so we'll see what happens. My fiance though said, maybe you can get TikTok famous. I said, absolutely not. We're not doing that. But I'm still taking you guys along with me because I think it's fun.
Have you noticed how many people have quietly started preparing lately? Not in a panicked way, just quietly, keeping a little more food on the shelf, holding on to cash, watching the headlines a little closer than they used to. There's a feeling spreading across the country right now that something is coming, and for the first time, regular people are saying it out loud. Let's take a look.
You guys, the job market just keeps getting worse. I'm seeing posts on LinkedIn like this now. And mind you, I've been seeing posts for months of people being like, I've submitted thousands of applications. I haven't heard anything. But this person's quite literally begging. I blocked their name out because they deserve to keep that private. That's insane. Part of the reason that I think this is such a big issue is the fact that we're still all relying so heavily on these corporate businesses to hold us up. I just want to encourage everybody that if you're in this space and you have marketable skills that you could be using to either, I don't know, make a consultancy, a small business of some sort, supporting other small businesses, making your own products, doing things for yourself, now is the time. Now's the time. I'm doing that myself. It's very difficult, obviously, but at the same time, I know that I don't have to rely on corporate anymore. It's the only benefit being laid off gave to me. So if you're in this same position, it's potentially time to start thinking about finding a way to start your own business, because corporate companies are not going to save you, unfortunately. Sucks.
It's hard to put into words, and that's exactly why so many people stay quiet about it. But the feeling is real. When this many people from completely different walks of life all describe the same unease at the same time, that's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition.
Half my office got laid off today, and my boyfriend was one of them. I was so completely prepared to lose my job. I was not prepared to keep it. Once he got that call, I knew I was next, but I wasn't. And at the beginning of this year, I declared this was my end of corporate era, right? Like, no more corporate. 2026 is it. Earlier this month, 2 staff members were laid off, kicking off the layoffs with absolutely no warning, and it's been super tense ever since. Our contract is expected to end in September, and every sign just kept pointing in one direction. And honestly, I had already made peace with it. I thought if I got laid off, it would be the thing that forced me to go all in on this, on my business. And while I've been preparing for that possibility, like, I've just been focused so hard on everything in business. This weekend, I hosted my sold out event that it went better than I could have ever imagined. Like, the sponsorships and partnerships for these women and the experiences they had, and the women who showed up for themselves. Like, I welcomed the first members into my membership. I sold the first spots in my summer brand refresh. For months, I have been watching things align in a way that really seemed to be prepping me for the next chapter. So when the layoffs started happening, I assumed I would be part of them. Deadass. But here I am. Tomorrow, I have to go back into an office, not knowing who I'll see, knowing I'm going to be seeing my boyfriend clearing out his desk. And honestly, my nervous system was way more prepared to lose my job than to keep it, because losing it would have made the decision for me. Keeping it means I still have to make my own. And maybe that's the lesson. Maybe the next chapter isn't waiting for someone else to force my hand into doing it. Maybe it's forcing me to trust myself and what I've already been building.
891 people lose their job every single day in tech alone, and most of them were hitting quota the week before they got an email from HR. I've been in the sales space for 6 years, and I've built communities over 750,000 salespeople. I run an agency that places closers into companies every single week. What I'm watching happen in corporate sales right now is unlike anything I've seen before. So there's a live tracker that counts tech layoffs in real time, and as of this month, over 91,000 tech workers have been laid off in 2026. So that is 891 people per day. And we're not even halfway through the year. Showing that Amazon cut 16,000 corporate roles in January, and Oracle is cutting up to 30,000. Meta just laid off 700 people across their sales and recruiting teams specifically. And here's the thing that should really bother you. Most of these companies are posting record profits. They're not laying off people because the company is failing. They're laying off people because they've decided that AI and smaller teams can do the same amount of work for less. You are not a family member to these companies. You're only a line item on a spreadsheet. In the moment the math says that a tool can do your job but for cheaper, the spreadsheet wins every single time. The only real job security in 2026 is a skill that generates income regardless of who employs you. And that skill is the ability to close. Getting on a call with a real human being is the one area where AI can't replace. You could A, either be the person whose job depends on a spreadsheet that someone else controls, or B, you could be the person with a skill that makes you money in any environment, in any economy, and from anywhere. If you're in corporate sales and you feel this shift happening, comment closer and I'll show you how to shift into the part of sales that can't be cut.
The job market is where a lot of people are feeling it first. Hiring has frozen, layoffs are quietly spreading, and the people who still have work are holding on tighter than ever. Even the economists are now admitting the average person is anxious and financially exhausted.
I'm so sorry, I'm here with a bit of bad news. I just went to the grocery store to get dinner. One dinner for tonight. One dinner. One. It was $114 for one dinner. $114.30 for a dinner. What the actual fuck is going on? Why is it $114 for one dinner? Granted, I had to get all the things for the dinner, right? We're having fajitas. Regardless, $114 for one fucking dinner? What have y'all done? I thought y'all hired that man to run a country that was gonna change shit. Newsflash. Shit's worse. Fucking stupid. Anyways. At least my hat's cute. $114 for a dinner. I hate it. I hate it.
And underneath it all, the prices just keep climbing. Groceries, rent, insurance, electricity. People did everything they were told to do, and they still can't get ahead. When working hard stops being enough, people start to sense that the rules underneath everything have changed.
The craziest thing about America is most people can't afford to die here anymore. I thought it was sad that people were putting gas and groceries on installment plans like Affirm and Klarna. But think about how many crowdfunding posts you see for funerals. People and their immediate families live paycheck to paycheck and are so poor with no savings that they're saying they can't afford a funeral for their loved ones. Life in this country is so fucked that it's spilling into death. And a lot of people say they won't be able to afford retirement. I'm probably one of those people realistically. And to think that it goes beyond retirement and people can't even afford to die. I mean, it's ridiculous. We can't afford to buy a home while we're alive, and our family and ourselves can't set up a fund to take care of a casket or an urn when we're dead. I really hope that America starts going down the Mom Donnie path before I'm a senior citizen.
And it isn't just a feeling anymore. The warnings are coming from the top now, too. Business leaders saying conditions are getting worse, economists saying the country is on the edge. When the people at the top start sounding nervous, the people at the bottom have already been living it for a while.
I have some good news and I have some bad news regarding the release of a key economic indicator that we use to determine the health of the economy and whether or not we're in a recession, among other things. And that's right, I'm talking about gross domestic product, or GDP. And the Bureau of Economic Analysis today released the third and final estimate for GDP for Q1 of 2026. Quick note about GDP and the way it's measured is that the Bureau of Economic Analysis actually releases this estimate 3 separate times. It first receives a more advanced estimate to see how the economy is doing, and then it revises that estimate once it has more information. So the fact that we're estimating and revising this number over time is not a concern. What the Bureau of Economic Analysis found is that between January and March of 2026, real GDP, right, so GDP adjusted for inflation, grew at a rate of about 2.1%. This is in comparison to the advanced first estimate of 2% and the second estimate of about 1.6%. Now, if we look at this just in a vacuum, a growth rate for GDP of between 2 and 3% for a country like the United States is a sweet spot and something we look for as economists, right? It shows that the economy is still growing, but also that the growth is not out of control and causes something like hyperinflation. However, in order to understand the full picture of what exactly is going on, we need to look at the numbers, right? We need to parse out exactly what is going on with GDP. Now, GDP is comprised of 4 separate measurements. This includes consumer spending, it includes investments, government spending, and net exports, which is essentially the amount that we import as a country subtracted by the amount that we export. And when we look at how these components of GDP changed between the first, second, and third estimate, what we see is that the increase in real GDP is primarily coming from a decrease in imports, right? The amount of goods we are importing into the country has declined, which makes a lot of sense given what we know about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, as well as the institution of several tariffs. And what's even more interesting is when we look specifically at consumer spending, which comprises 2/3 of real GDP, we see that consumer spending between the first and the third estimate has declined by 0.7%. Now, according to the notes from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, this revision downward of consumer spending is primarily coming from a reduction in services, specifically international travel, as well as to downward revisions for financial services and insurance. And specifically in Q1, right, this decline in consumer spending is concerning to economists. A lot of the reason for this is that Q1 consumer spending typically increases because people receive their tax refunds and they spend it on a whole bunch of things. And looking at these numbers in comparison to what we know about the decline in purchasing power, right? The fact that inflation measures like CPI and PCE are increasing faster than wages signals that there is a lot of concern among consumers about the health and state of the economy. We also know that consumer sentiment, right, among individuals is at some of its lowest levels since the survey actually began over 50 years ago. And in economics, there's a common trope that a lot of economic concern among consumers, rightly so, can bring about things like economic declines and recession, right? Consumer concern and psychology can cause a retraction to the economy if it is of a big enough impact. Right now, what we know is that a lot of higher income individuals are driving the majority of consumer spending, right? The people in the top decile, the top 10%, are contributing about 50% of consumer spending. However, if that 10% retracts, then there is a concern that a recession will take place, which can have wide-ranging implications that are negative that we are not seeing in our current economy to occur. Again, I'm happy to go into more details. This is a very interesting update to some of the numbers that we have, and we will of course start seeing some of the Q2 estimates after June concludes. But for now, that's all I got. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.
In 2 months, it's going to become completely unaffordable to live in the United States. And I'm not talking about luxury lifestyle. I'm talking about basic middle-class needs. I run a relocation business out of Costa Rica. I asked my clients, who are a couple from Bushwick, Brooklyn, why they were thinking of moving abroad. They sent me their monthly budget spreadsheet. So combined, they make $120,000 a year. And from that, they get to bring home about $7,400 a month after taxes. Their rent is $3,100 a month. And their health insurance is about to skyrocket to $1,750. They budget about $1,000 a month for groceries. Their utilities, internet, cell phones, and MetroCard are another $1,300 or so. So at the end of the month, this leaves them with about $250. And that doesn't include any unexpected expenses or the hope for investments or the hope for a savings account. So what they said to me is that this is what running in place feels like. And the reason that they want to move abroad is because they actually want to move forward with their lives.
So people are getting ready, not survivalists, regular families, a little extra food, a little cash set aside, a garden going in out back. They're not waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to prepare. They're listening to that quiet feeling and acting on it while they still can.
What do I think we should all be preparing for right now? I laugh not because it's funny, but just because that is such a loaded question. There's just so much going on right now. But I think the easiest way to try and figure out how to prepare is think about how expensive your groceries are. Think about how expensive your bills are, your electric, your basic hygiene, your doctor's appointments, and imagine that doubling, worst case scenario, maybe tripling, but just basically getting more expensive. And how can you make your life easier to where you can weather that, meaning that you can still afford things? So maybe if you have a little bit of money right now, you have, extras in your paycheck, should you be stocking up on your basic necessities so that you have a little bit of a stockpile? Or maybe if you don't have the extra money to do that right now, maybe you start focusing on cutting expenses, having a garage sale, selling things that you don't need to get an emergency fund, basically trying to create a financial safety net as much as you can. Maybe you do both. Rather than thinking about, specific things, is think about your personal situation. If things were to get even more expensive than they are now, how can you counteract that? Can you grow some of your own food? Can you, like I said, do all the other things? And think about it that way.
Nobody can tell you exactly what's coming or when. But when this many people feel the same thing at the same time, it's worth paying attention to. If you've had that quiet feeling in the back of your mind that something is shifting, you are not imagining it, and you are not alone. Millions of people are feeling it right alongside you. You don't have to panic. You just have to pay attention, talk to the people you trust, and take small steps to get a little more prepared than you were yesterday. Because the people who see it coming early are the ones who handle it best. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.